There's something in, especially within intellectuals, that imagines that they can plan the world, but it's all pretense. It's all pompous nonsense, really. Nobody knows anything.
Okay, guys, welcome back to the Grimerica show. We're going to be chatting with Jeffrey Tucker a little bit later, an economist, about net neutrality. It's also
he's the editorial director of the American Institute for Economic Research.
Super proud of it.
Among many other things.
Among many other things.
Yeah, fascinating chat. Kind of expanded on our Truth Factory chat.
Libertarian, volunteerist, anarchist, sort of mix of them all.
Yeah.
And definitely free market.
Hear that,
no, he might not like that, but we got to paint him with some sort of a brush here. So yeah, you guys should enjoy it. I mean, some of you that are still a little butthurt about net neutrality might not like it so much, but anyway, we wanted to talk more about it with someone who's been paying more attention, can kind of talk about the regulation and everything else a little bit better. And what was interesting is that I heard from a couple people. Because honestly, when he was talking about getting paid to surf and things like that, it honestly sounds a little bit crazy. But then I started on an unrelated fucking topic. I was listening to an interview with someone about quantum computers and rudimentary AI and things like that. And it talks about how these things need fucking new data constantly being created. Otherwise, they fucking starve themselves. So they just need all this fucking data to just constantly be crunching, and they need new data to constantly be created. So eventually the companies that own these fucking supercomputers could feasibly fucking start giving out the internet for free and paying people to just stay home all day and fuck around on the internet so that these things can fucking...
I don't know. It's hard to wrap my head around.
It's insane. But
the way he described
I just wanted to mention that to just kind of talk that there is when you talk to the AI people and the quantum computing people about the kind of the stuff he's talking about. It's not crazy. It's like these, but it is fucking hard to wrap your head around.
Yeah.
I was listening to a thing the other day about this Tyler system that is this fucking Intel chip thing, which is fucking crazy.
Okay, you're F-bombing a little too much right now.
All right. Well, next we'll bring on Graham, the fucking prude.
No. I'm just saying. I'm supposed to warn you, right? If you're doing it every second word, like...
Easy, right?
Shouldn't I say it? Just easy?
Yeah,
how should I do it?
I don't know. You need a safe word.
Frack.
You should start doing it back.
No, because then it's just going to turn into a total
fuck fest. Yeah, you're probably right.
My mom's pretty upset right now listening.
Is she?
Yeah, she has a hard time with the F-bombs. She says, "You're on air." I'm like, "Mom, we're not on air. This isn't fucking talk radio."
Sometimes we're on air.
I said it there, but it was appropriate there.
Was it?
Yeah. But it's every second word. It's not appropriate. Anyways, you got to introduce
me. Graham's mom. I did.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Oh, Graham the...
Prude.
Oh, the prude. So,
Graham
before I forget...
On air, Dunlop.
Before I forget, stick around for the outro, because Michael's in the studio, and we chat for about another 20 minutes about this episode, and we kind of get into some deeper stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of our longer outros.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It was good.
Yeah,
so what were you saying about the Tyler Institute and
no, it wasn't the Tyler Institute.
I did interrupt
he's talking. Sorry. That's okay. He was talking about Tyler is this like weird AI thing that was created and now has been copied a bunch of times. And he's like, this random Tyler will be running a school, or you really got to fucking listen to it. The guy could be a crazy like pill guy too. He looks a little like
pill guy. What's
like
that?
A pill junkie.
What?
He looks a little, I don't know.
Come on, you can't.
I don't know what to take of it.
Like that? Call him pill guy? What?
Can I get sued for that?
I don't know.
Only if I mention names.
Yeah, don't mention any names.
Anyway, the guy seems to come off like he knows what he's talking about, but he looks sketchy. So I have trouble with it.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's supposed to be, but you heard about this new Intel thing.
No.
Which is that like every fucking computer made for the last 30 years is backdoored.
Well, there's only two companies doing those, right? Intel and NVIDIA or something like that, maybe? Or...
Yeah. It's like every Mac product.
Oh, is that the slowdown thing?
Almost all.
The slowdown?
Fucking, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we all knew that was going on. because you have
no,
physical evidence.
no, not the slowdown thing. The fact that this Intel chip seems to be a fucking back door into every computer system on the planet.
Wow.
For the last 20 years, 30 years, it's been happening.
Wow. Yeah, that goes back to the beginning of the chip, right? The silicon chip and Silicon Valley, and they were involved way back then.
Yeah.
They, but who is they?
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I mean, you know,
Somebody,
it's just the people in power, right? They want that access.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's been getting crazy lately. Seems like shit's getting crazy.
It does, yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to get into it too much here. We're going to do a black budget show about it soon with our buddy. We're not going to say his name because I think he wants to use a pseudonym for this one. Below. Sounds kind of pop starry. But we're going to get into a bunch of that stuff there. But it is starting to seem like there's some rumblings under the surface that, you know, maybe could be coincidental, but I don't know. It seems like 2018 could be an exciting year. And,
you know, I haven't been paying attention, as you know, for the last couple months to the mainstream sort of. I mean, I hear about it through you
don't
and
seem
other
any
people.
Happier.
I'm worse.
Yeah, you do seem worse.
I'm grumpier, and I should just fucking get back on the following the bullshit.
Something you need something
facade, all the fucking all the distraction. Like
you're grumpier. Yeah. Well, it's a tough time of year too. Like I find myself just fucking.
But there does seem to be lots more going on now though than when I stopped paying.
I find myself exhausted at like 8 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
After getting through, you know, you kind of got that Christmas to look forward that gets you through those short days, and you got the holiday coming up, which helps out, and then you just get into January and it's cold as fuck again, and it's like fuck.
Yeah.
But another couple months, we'll be out of it.
I don't mind the cold really so much. It doesn't seem to be as bad as we all think.
It's the short days and the no sun, man.
Yeah.
It's like today the sun's out, but the clouds are so thick you can't even barely tell.
Yeah.
And it just, I think that physically runs you down because you're not getting
enough.
Your body gets used to getting like fucking 16, 18 hours a day of sunshine. And then all of a sudden it's down to like 6 hours of sketchy sun.
Unless you're at the local dermatologist, because he says you only need like 15 minutes of sun or something for 3 months, the guy. You know.
and it's angular too. So you're not getting
it's great. On the weekend, it was just in my eyes the whole time. Cause it's just,
never
like
really
straight
comes up.
north from you.
Yeah. Because the earth is flat.
Yeah.
Check out Grimerica.ca/GASA, GASA, and help us prove that the world is flat or isn't flat, whichever. We're not going to cheat you, though. If it turns out to be flat, I'll eat my hat on the air.
Well, it's been done. This has been done. You want to do it again? People are happy we're doing it. I guess we're gonna send a balloon up in space with some fucking moai.
We got our crystal side business. People are supposed to send us ideas for business ideas.
Are they?
Yeah.
To attach to the balloon?
Because we might get an extra a couple balloons because we got 4 balloons in the budget. So we're good for like 27 pounds.
So does this, if they go to Grimerica.ca/GASA, that tells them?
It has a bit of a breakdown there. Yeah, I should do, now that we're going to get it rolling again, I'll do a bit of an update.
Okay.
But yeah, we're good for like 27 pounds. We could even add a couple balloons, maybe get that up to like 35. And, if people can get, because there could be, I think we're missing out on some stuff there. It's a thing in the UK, a company doing fucking teddy bears. And in the crystal community and everything else, I don't know. I think there's something.
People charge the crystals in the moon and then the sun and all that. Like,
we
what
do
if it's true? It's 35 miles.
I'll get it up fucking 30 miles up there.
Yeah.
Some crystal people were supposed to tell us.
Would
you pay more?
I want my crystals up.
For a space crystal?
I want my crystals.
You better start with one.
So we don't want other
just in
people's
case we
crystals.
Don't get it back.
I've got a lot that I can just give.
So we'll try a couple of yours, and then we'll go like buy a 10-pack. We'll send them up, and then we'll throw them on eBay and see what happens. Space crystals, baby.
First, we should do some science around, like, if the crystals. We should talk to Nassim Harriman and see and send his.
We can't even talk to Nassim Harriman. Period. He doesn't.
Harriman.
We've been harassing him.
We can send his arc crystals up, and there's got to be some science around.
Those arc crystals look cool.
I know.
Do you have some of those?
No, I don't. No.
Are they super expensive?
I think so, yeah. But we should look into it. We have to look into it. The latest Matt Belair episode had him on because Matt was in our show there talking about his Egypt trip and ancient civilizations. And actually, Matt's got 2 episodes out, but he talks about the art crystals. And I mean, I've got a whole email from a listener like outlining the people that were in Egypt. We should really get some of those guys on, and one of them being the person that made those art crystals. But there's probably some science around the crystal being up in the upper atmosphere and getting way more energy from the sun or the moon or whatever.
Yeah, there's got to be. There's got to be. I'm going to send up some weed seeds.
Cosmic weed.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Right, well, there's a couple good
other ideas that we haven't thought of.
Yeah,
like even like we'll send
Sperm?
up some vitamin D.
Sperm.
Gram spermia. We're working at.
What if you send up sperm and it gets like
and then
cosmic?
What are you going to do with it after?
Inseminate.
Who are you going to inseminate?
I'm just saying. So people that are doing that.
We need some volunteers to send us some semen. You can address that to Graham. We'll send it to space and send it back.
Could you keep it alive?
I don't know. It gets too cold, I think.
Could you cryo freeze it and then have it thaw out up there or something?
I don't know. That seems like, what if it like damages it?
Well, that's the whole thing is you want to test what it does to it, right? Maybe it'll
just
come back with superpowers or something, you know, like with cosmic.
What if it goes the other way? What if it goes the other way?
I don't think it will.
Here's hoping. Because you'd feel pretty guilty if you made a mutant.
Yeah, maybe.
Now you're responsible for this thing.
Grand mutant.
You just have to take it on, get it in school.
Yeah, it's in the studio.
Yeah.
Oh, it's growing really fast.
It's getting expensive to feed. Grab mutant. Grab at Grimerica.com. So what do you got for me, buddy?
GRAHAM.
HAM, yeah.
Well, I mean, I've got an email here from David. And it's talking about this topic of net neutrality and our last episode with the Truth Factory.
What kind of jingle
so I want to spam, Graham.
Graham. And now another edition of Grimerican Goodies by the people, for the people.
So, greetings, Graham. Just listened to your pod with Kat. One thought on net neutrality. I was like you, not sure what to think. On its face, getting rid of net neutrality has a plethora of merit. I decided to find out who owns all the internet providers. It's the same companies that own the MSM. I fucking hate the MSM. 70% of the people in the US have to use Comcast or Charter, formerly Time Warner. Where I live in Washington State, there are only 4 choices: Comcast, Dish, DirecTV, and CenturyLink for high-speed internet. Comcast VP David Cohen said in 2016 that the big companies don't compete with each other because it's too expensive to do so. Look it up. Back to my point, think of how the MSM is run. Only 6 companies. Internet providers are run and owned by the same corporations. If you expect the same fucks that run the MSM to change their MO for the internet, well, I don't know what to tell you. Thank you for what you guys do. David from Washington State.
But doesn't Comcast also offer like HBO and a bunch of on-demand stuff and like cable and all this other stuff that you can kind of get that isn't like mainstream news? See, the problem with the internet was that ever since its inception, it was going to be tied to the big companies because in its infancy, it relied on telephone lines, which means the telephone companies were going to have a fucking a monopoly.
A gate.
So for the first fucking 10 or 15 years, the telephone companies had a monopoly because it was dial-up. And then it split off into DSL, which is still using the existing telephone lines, and cable, which is using the existing fucking, and they run new lines and
fiber optics.
And blah, blah, blah. But I mean, I think the fact that the television systems are still running on cable and telephone lines and things like that is a good example of what happens when the government gets involved and regulates the shit out of things. And you can't really get into starting a new thing because you don't have $1 billion to run the new lines. And I don't know. I just find when the government gets in, that business all of a sudden gets a whole lot harder to get into. And I just don't buy it that, you know, for the first 25 years or whatever of the internet, things were fine.
Right.
But run by these monopolies, first the telephone companies, then and now you've got these fiber companies coming up. Like, we can get fiber here. I mean, we still here, there's 2 companies. That's it. We've got 2 companies to choose from in Canada with net neutrality. And we've got a couple different speeds to choose from, and that's it. And if you want to get into fiber and stuff like that, it's like $600, $700, $800 a month. So, I mean, we've got that in Canada and we're stuck. So I don't know. I like to think that if you just give it to the free market, maybe we'll get past, you know, if we can, let's have this untouched internet that keeps the government and the fucking regulations out of it and see what the fuck happens. Because we don't really have a good example of that in a telecommunications market or an entertainment market or any sort of market. So now all of a sudden we have this thing that anyone can get into and blah, blah, blah. So let's just leave it the fuck alone and see what happens. Because right now, these companies aren't doing any of the horrible things. And they didn't do it for the first 25 years. And I don't think they're going to start doing it now. And not only that, I like.
Well, they are doing horrible things. In a way.
They're always
with the
doing.
MSM.
They're always
his
doing
fear
horrible
is legit
things.
with the MSM. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a fucking nightmare.
Yeah, but the guts. I think that's because the government's getting involved. And I mean, the MSM.
Not in the MSM.
The MSM has basically been co-opted by the government, in my opinion.
No, not the government. I mean,
so I think if you get the government, start getting the fucking government involved in the internet, you're going to have the same shit in 10 years where you can't cuss and me and you can't have a show because we're not licensed. You're going to get into fucking licensing and things like that.
So is his premise, is his feel of this email then
Trust the government.
Trust the government to regulate from those companies, from those
Yeah.
corporations that have got a stranglehold, potentially got a stranglehold on that eventually?
Which then my fear is then we're still going to be using fucking cable and telephone lines for the internet and fucking
instead of
50
our own
years
little
from now,
Wi-Fi mini networks or something
instead
like
of
that.
who knows, maybe if we leave it to the free market and these guys get crazy, then other people invent other things in their fucking basement. And you know, it tends to keep happening. So I don't see why it would stop. And I'd like to just leave the internet untouched as its own little experiment and see what happens. And I tend to believe that if fucking the corporations start doing crazy shit like that, then other options are going to arise.
Yeah, maybe. It might be harder to tame than the original cable and the MSM, because the MSM is falling apart.
Yeah.
Really. That whole structure. People are going to the streaming, they're going to YouTube, they're going to Netflix, and I mean, I'm not saying that's not mainstream, but then they're going to podcasts and all this other independent content. So
yeah, my fear is the independent content will go away after. I mean, it's not going to happen right away, but it's slowly going to turn into that. It's slowly going to turn into that fucking, you can't even be me and you can't even go out with an FM broadcaster, and that's illegal.
So what I was getting is a little harder to control. It's a little easier to control the MSM and the cable side of things. I think the internet's more of a wild card. You know, it's harder for them they might have control over I don't know. Like I guess they have a monopoly over your access to it, but I mean, I don't think they can just turn it off. Like
maybe they can, but I trust them more than the government.
Fuck, that's a tough one, eh?
I trust them more than the government to fucking shut shows like us down. And not even just us. I mean, shows that are a lot more high profile and taking on a lot tougher subjects than we are. They're just going to start to disappear. But the other thing is that it's going to turn into a mess that you see on YouTube happening already. Is that, you know, the government gets involved and I don't know. I think the whole
censorship will be happening
exactly
compared to just the corporate censorship.
Exactly.
I don't know. That's
hate
a tough
speech,
one. That could be that could be more corporate. I mean, what's to say that it's not easier for a corporation who's got a really political point of view that they censor things the way they want. I don't know, man. It's a tough call.
I guess at the end of the day, I'll put my eggs in the basket of the person that can't fucking put me in jail.
Yeah. Totally. I mean, it's never going to get smaller with the government.
Because, I mean, we see that. We see the results of what we've got with our net neutrality in Canada. We've got 2 companies to choose from. Technically, in Chestermere, we've got 1 because Shaw doesn't even have high speed here yet. They've never bothered to run the lines. So I can get 6 up and 6 down with TELUS. Or with Shaw, I can get the 150, and that's it.
And look what happens with WestJet and Air Canada. Our 2 airlines.
And we pay $150 a month for that.
$200 with cable.
Yeah.
I mean, it's ridiculous.
Just for the internet's $150. 2 airlines, and we pay way more than the States.
Not only that, but you go to check flights on those, and they're $1 apart.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, this one's $272, and this one's $272. Yeah. You're like, how do they get to be the exact same price from these 2 airlines that
Different
we have to choose from?
airplanes.
Now, I mean, some people could say, well, there's the point about the corporations right there and their monopolies. But I mean, the governments have been subsidizing one of those.
Yeah.
So it's a big fucking mess of government subsidies and airlines.
Yeah.
So how do we know what?
Because the government,
what is fucking free competition?
To me, I look at the like fucking public schools and like, I mean, even airplanes. For an example that the government has fucking regulated the shit out of, and we're still traveling around the world the same way we were 50 years ago. Not a whole lot has changed. All these other industries have changed fucking insane amounts.
Yeah.
But the airline industry is the same. The fucking school systems are the same.
Yeah. Yeah,
these
really
are the things the fucking government is fucking running. While the private sector is fucking gonzo.
Yeah.
So let's let the internet be gonzo.
Yeah, that's a good point.
You know, and if we're wrong, whatever.
Yeah. Well, thanks for the email, David. You spurred a little bit of conversation there.
Conversation.
What else do you want to talk about?
Support the show?
Yeah. We can't do it without you, listeners. We can't, really.
We really can't.
We didn't plan on it to be like this, but that's the way it turned out.
This is how it turned out. Absolutely. And especially in the winter, things are a little more expensive in the winter. And yeah, check out grimerica.ca/support if you can, guys. We are getting through those kind of holiday doldrums. So if you can check out grimerica.ca/support, sign up for a monthly if you can, go into 2018 with a clear conscience and get those extra black budget episodes at the same time. I think there's like 14, 15 in there. We're going to do some more of the trivia show ones coming up right away here. We're going to have Bilo on. All kinds of fun stuff. Speaking of the trivia one, I was going to mention too, Felix and I were talking about maybe getting the listeners involved on a little trivia we're coming up on our 5-year anniversary, which I think is kind of a big deal.
Yeah, we might as well celebrate that.
So we might as well.
Yeah. I can't believe how fast it's
gone.
We're
real bad for the last 4 years for like planning it like the week before.
Yeah.
So here we've got like 5.5 months. I think we officially launched on like May 23rd, but we just call it June 1st because it's easier.
Do we?
Yeah, we planned to launch June 1st, and then we just launched early. So we'll just do it June 1st.
Okay.
Ish. I mean, we don't usually do it on the exact day anyway.
Yeah, it'll be.
But that week is our kind of 5-year anniversary.
Yeah. So January, February, March, April. Oh, that's a long ways away.
Yeah, so we have plenty of time. But we're kind of planning this thing, and if it's going to work out, we're going to need a little bit of time. So we're thinking we're going to do a little trivia show. We had a couple people suggest that listen to our black budget trivia show, doing something like that with some listeners, or doing actual Grimerica trivia, which is really tough to start 260 episodes in. Like, we can't expect Felix to go back and try and come up with Grimerica questions.
No, let's not do. Do you want? Who said? Was that a suggestion, or are you, is that you right now?
We're not going to do it like that. We're going to have listeners send in stuff.
No, I know, but I don't think it should be Grimerica focused, though. Do you think?
Yeah, it should be focused around not just Grimerica, but
those topics.
It can be Grimerica or guests. It's the gag of it is it's supposed to be stuff that we should know, but we're not going to know.
That's the gag of it?
Yeah.
Who came up with that gag? You?
Michael.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So we'll have the listeners send in their question, or it could be on
I thought it was supposed to be
episode,
against
any
somebody
guest.
else, against another podcast, though. Like it was
No,
us
that's what we
versus
do in the
Cruising
Black
with Steak.
Budget feed.
Oh, okay.
That's we're going to keep doing that.
Oh, I see.
We got to do game 2 of Cruising with Steak here in like a week and a half.
Okay.
And then FTK already wants friends to know. Justin and Adam want a piece of us.
For sure, yeah.
And then we're supposed to go still with
Micah?
Tripoli.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. And I'm sure we could get Micah and them in for one too. So that'll be an ongoing thing in the Black Budget. But for the 5-year thing, I think what we'll do is we'll do it kind of Grimerica based around the show and the 270 episodes and all the guests we can have on.
Okay.
So the questions could be about any guest we've had on, any intro, anything we've mentioned in the past on the show. It can just be about
or
anything.
topics, even related topics.
Or even related
so it kind of
topics.
fucking blows the thing wide open.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah. But it adds, it could be like a quote from episode 120 thing. But anyway, it'll be Grimerica trivia. So here's how it's going to work. You send in a question, and you get, if you send in the question with the Felix, you send it to Felix, not to Graham and I. We'll put Felix's email in the show notes. Actually, maybe we'll make him one. We'll make him a sender or something like that, so we don't have to give away his email. And then you guys send in a question, and if you send in a question, your name's in the draw. If you send in more than one question, your name's in the draw. And I think what we'll do is when we get for that 5-year special, by then, ideally, hopefully we'll have a bunch of questions, and Felix is we'll do a draw, and we'll figure it out. 2 or 4 people come on that get drawn their name.
Does he read the person like?
No,
this
he's going to track it. So he's going to do it like that. And what he'll do is he'll make sure whoever ends up getting their name drawn is on the show doesn't get asked their own question. So then what we'll do is for the 5-year show, it'll be me and you against maybe 2 teams of listeners, or it'll be against a couple of listeners.
Why don't we just do me against you for that show? Or do you want to get? I don't mind. No, we should get the listeners involved. Okay. It just turns into a bit of a shit show. If we get too many people
it'll be
involved.
a shit show. Yeah, it'll be a shit show for sure. We'll do like maybe 4 of us or something like that.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
No, it's going to be you and I. We'll be on a team, I think.
Okay, yeah, let's do that. Okay.
It would be fun to go against each other.
Yeah, we should do that.
We should do that sometime too.
Yeah. Maybe I team up with a couple listeners, Team Graham and Team Darren.
Yeah, we could do it like that. That'd be a good way. Yeah, that'd be a fun way.
Team Graham.
And then Felix will go through and ask the questions, and we'll do it like that.
Okay.
And we'll see who.
Okay,
wins.
so we're thinking about that now. We're trying to plan ahead of time, which is good.
We're open to suggestion
later.
too. If you have another idea or a better idea,
not
what we
suggestion.
Could do
That sounds like brainwashing. Suggestions.
We don't want to get into. Like I thought about doing a compilation show with a bunch of past guests. Let's do it. Let's keep it listener focused.
And did you tell people how to get access to the Black Budget? Because we are putting extra normal content out. Like we've been putting 2 episodes a week out, twice a month kind of thing. Like it's been 4 to 6, sometimes 7 episodes a month. So we are doing more here.
Yeah.
Hoping for more support as well. And that support, any monthly, any regular donation.
Get you access to the Black Budget
which we just put extra content in again, but it's more.
That's where all the trivia game shows against other podcasts end up too.
Yeah. And then there's a bunch of other weird, sort of more, sometimes controversial, sometimes just more strange episodes.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I am still going to release the jingle ep too. That's just a compilation of all the jingles ever sent in.
Cool.
Yeah.
In the Black Budget app?
No, I think I'll just do that in the regular feed. No? Should that be Black Budget?
Yeah, maybe.
That's pretty lame Black Budget content.
Okay.
I dropped my pen.
Okay.
Anything else?
Yeah, I got a little couple of emails regarding our Grant Cameron episode, and one of them's a synchronicity.
I want a good score from a synchronicity. If Graham reads it out, then Darren might give it to me. Hey, don't you please read it low, yeah.
This is from your buddy Cause in Winterpeg. Now, we think it's cold here. Yeah, this is
it's been real cold.
Winterpeg is crazy. So he says, hey guys, I was listening to your recent incredible interview with Grant Cameron today at work. That's episode 243. Actually, I'll put that in the show notes as well. Says he took us on an incredible journey through some of his experiences. It was neat to hear of his incredible experience in Carmen, Manitoba. Since I've been living in Winnipeg for half my life now, it was great to hear somebody on your show so fascinating that hail from this city. But he touched upon a name that I recognized from about 16 years ago through my discovery of the Coast to Coast AM's radio call-in show, and that name was George Knapp. I recall him filling it.
I tweeted George Knapp today.
No way.
Yeah.
Did you really?
Yeah. Keep going.
That's weird.
Keep going. I'll pull it up.
I recall him filling in for Bell and Norrie. Obviously, he's talking about Art Bell and George Norrie, hosting the show here and there and occasionally on the Sundays. I remember that as well. Now, me managing part of the accounts payable division of a large auto body repair company, I'll get calls from time to time from out parts vendors. So about a half hour after I listened to the section of the interview where Grant spoke about George, I got a call from a vendor that I'd never heard of before and was from out of state that I do not oversee. The name of that vendor was Coast to Coast International. The hair on my arm stood up and I got a grin on my face and I knew I had to send this one over and bet it. But it was a small synchro, but he says, keep up the awesome work. That's from Cause. Thanks, buddy.
Cause. Killer Cause.
That's pretty good. And I think Darren will compound the synchro right about now.
Compound this motherfucker. All right, what do we got here? Ugh. Too many people tweet. Oh, did I go back too far? Huh. Okay, so where is it? Did I delete it? No, it couldn't be. Okay, yeah, so it all started with, so George Knapp tweeted out, please don't shoot Bigfoot. Yeah, George Knapp tweeted an article that is it legal to shoot Bigfoot? And he prefaced it with, please don't shoot Bigfoot.
Nice. He's on my camp.
He's
in my camp.
And then the Kraken, which is our buddy Ken, he runs the Grimerica subreddit, which is, I think, reddit.com/r/Grimerica. Thanks, Ken. He said, listen to the man, Grimerica. And I said, if he comes on the show, I'll consider it. And he says, you heard him, George. Go on Grimerica and save the Sasquatch. And that's the last I heard.
Should have linked to our shirt that has me fucking saving Sasquatch, taking a bullet for the beast.
So we'll see if George responds.
Does George know we have memes around that and everything?
Probably not.
All right. But we did meet George, both of us.
What?
Paradigm.
Yeah. Nah, that was the other George.
Oh, yeah, right. This is Knapp. Yeah. So I have another.
Wait, is his name even George?
No. It's, yeah. George Knapp? George Norrie? Yeah, they're
George Norrie. Is it George Norrie? Yeah, that's right.
Oh, God.
Mustache guy. Who wants a mustache ride? Are you gonna fucking...
Is it George Norrie? No, it doesn't.
It's gotta be.
Oh, now that feels really odd. We have his book here, too.
I'm sure it's George Norrie.
Is it?
Sounds right, yeah. Did you have something else?
Yeah, I got another one here about the Grant Cameron episode, just to expand on that a little bit. And that's an email from Alex. He says, so this is kind of a UFO sighting as well, I think. Do you want to play a jingle?
No.
Okay. Hello, Graham. Have to admit your show is probably my favorite over No Agenda and the Higher Side Chats. Bingo.
Bingo bango. That's fucking...
There was an episode I listened to over 2 years ago where it was mentioned that if you want to see UFO-like phenomena, then you have to look at the skies most nights. I had been doing this for roughly 6 months from my house near Pembroke, Ontario, and one night in August last year, I saw something in the southern sky that seemed to fit the description of Charlie Red Star. The object pulsated slowly. When it was at its dimmest, it was about as bright as the average star. When it was at its brightest, it appeared almost as a fireball. By far the brightest thing in the sky. That's not even the most striking thing about this object. As it traveled from west to east, it flew in a serpentine pattern like a sine wave. Huh. We've seen similar things in our CSETI group, Darren. It was It was moving quite quickly across the sky, and after about 15 seconds, it bolted south in a streak of light. It was an incredible sight and something I'll never forget. The Grant Cameron episode and mention of Charlie Red Star compelled me to disclose my sighting. Keep up the great work, Alex.
Thanks, Alex.
Yeah. Thanks, buddy. Awesome.
Grant Cameron.
So, might as well continue on that vein. I've got a UFO
Okay, wait.
quote
No.
of the...
Okay, there we go. We had the new moon, dark sky, which is great. Had a planned camping, pitched our tent, went back there for the night. Crystal clear. Darkest night. Decided to read that meditation, did the singing bowl, and that shit starts happening. Pow, pow, pow. We started seeing flash bulbs. Streakers coming down. Grim Dunlop.
Okay, good. Good enough.
Star.
Lovely.
Grim Dunlop.
Lovely.
His
Okay.
setting star.
So I got this for today, this morning, 6:30.
I've been...
And he's only
No,
sent
no,
it to
no,
me,
no.
so I'll read
No,
it.
I've been talking to him, emailing him. I'm booking him.
So the subject is Darren. I've been interacting with UFOs for 3 years using lasers, and I implore you to read this. So I just what?
Okay, go ahead.
What
No,
is-
you can't. You can't.
I can't read this?
No.
Why not?
You got to edit this out.
What? I'm not editing this out. There's
Yeah.
no chance that's happening. What?
You can't do it.
Why?
Because
I didn't say his
I'll
last
tell you
name.
later. You didn't say his last name?
No,
Okay, he's supposed to be anonymous.
it's a pseudonym.
It's a pseudonym? Okay. He's coming on.
Is he?
Yeah.
Okay, so I got this. Darren, I can relate as a kindred and enlightened spirit that
Yeah,
wants
I got
to see
that
our
too.
species reach the higher paths of evolution and consciousness. I desire the truth, the universal truth that we are entitled to know and share. I'll introduce myself briefly. My grandfather was an engineer. What? Why are you shaking your head? You want to wait for the episode? He seems like he sent it to me to read. Wow, it's incredibly long.
Yeah, it's very, very long.
Jesus. So you don't think I should read it?
No, in fact, you got to edit.
I'm not
edit this
editing
out.
this out. There's no chance that's happening. Well, say your quote then, since you've ruined my segment.
Well, I've been communicating with him, and he wants to be anonymous. And he'll come on
He
the
is
show,
anonymous.
but he's not anonymous because you said his name.
Well, there's a million.
Million. Okay, we'll see what happens.
If he breaks contact, I can always read the email.
No, fuck. I don't want it. No, I can't. He's a kindred spirit.
Is he?
Yeah.
Well, then there's a million kindred spirits named.
Okay. Anyways, I've
Did
got
I say
more.
his background?
He said his family's background. I'll tell you what. We'll discuss this offline and we'll figure it out. And you might get some bleeps in this episode, and that was us editing this a little bit, which we rarely do, barely ever. But
There's no
this
bleeps.
might be the case. So I've got this UFO quote of the week from the CIA.gov, the reading room. This is the CIA's own website, and it says, "This is declassified in part, sanitized copy approved for release." And this is the 50 year 2014, June 12th, Bangor, Maine. That was just handwritten on this document.
What was?
Bangor, Maine.
Is that a place in Maine?
Yeah.
A place called Bangor?
Yeah.
Huh.
So the title of this article is Mystery Makes Life More Interesting. Well, we see that the House Space Committee is planning another investigation.
Wait, isn't this supposed to be a UFO quote?
Well, it's part of the UFO quote segment, but it's an article from the CIA
Okay.
website that's been sanitized. We've done this before a lot.
So we're just like the conduit from the CIA.
Who's gonna love it?
We're the CIA conduit.
Well, we see that the House Space Committee is planning another investigation of the UFO mystery. We can't say we are greatly stirred by this development. Yet, curiosity will prevent us from ignoring whatever developments may turn up. Officially, the Air Force has been insistent for years that there is no mystery about the mystery. The UFOs they contend are simply meteors, weather balloons, planets. Is that what it says? Planets and such. Still, the Air Force can't prove its case because UFOs don't stay long enough to be positively identified. They are long gone before they can be scientifically on-the-spot verdict. Several prominent people are not satisfied with the Air Force stand. They include Admiral R.H. Hillenkotter, former chief of the CIA, Senator Barry Goldwater, and House Speaker John McCormack. So we say, get on with the UFO inquiry. We'll be listening. Next to a whodunit, there's nothing like a what was it?
What was it? And there's your CIA fucking tidbit for the day. What else could we do? Let's go to the CNN website and start reading an article.
That's a little different.
Is it?
Yeah, man. They're tracking this shit for decades. And we're going to explore some of it on the show.
Okay.
There you have it. All right.
Let's get back to the quote next week.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Enjoy the chat. It's a fun one. This is a fun one. We had a good time with this one, for sure. Yeah. Tucker was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Jeffrey.
Yeah.
And he's a smart dude. So, you don't want to listen to us? Well, we can't even figure it out amongst ourselves. But anyway, listen to Jeffrey. Let us know what you think.
All right, we've got Jeffrey Tucker here. He's the editorial director of the American Institute for Economic Research, CEO of Liberty Me, an author. He's into the cryptocurrency, all kinds of interesting stuff on economics and Bitcoin and freedom and liberty. And we're going to talk to him about net neutrality tonight. Darren's wanting to learn a little bit more about that. So without further ado, welcome to the show, Jeffrey. Thanks for spending some time with us here.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Thanks. Is this a boring topic? No, I hope not.
No, none of it is.
I don't think so. And the polarization is like through the roof.
Oh, right. Like a couple of weeks ago, it was like flooding my Twitter account. It was like, it was like the great civil rights issue of the millennial generation. Give us our net neutrality. It was kind of embarrassing, I must say.
Yeah, well, it's not only that. I mean, the amount of people, like I've got people who I respect as tech people, to a certain extent, that are sitting there and telling me that Twitter's going to be $7 and Facebook's going to be, and it's like,
I know.
I honestly can't believe it.
I know. Yeah, it's so funny to me. It's the people who say these things. Basically what they're saying is the market doesn't work. We can't have the market because then we're going to be charged for a bunch of things and we're going to be annoyed by it. And it's all a little bit silly. I mean, I'm so glad net neutrality is gone because it gives the internet a chance to go to the next level. It's like we've been on hold for almost 3 years now, thanks to this crazy federal government regulation that gave massive privileges to content providers and incumbent ISPs, and they all work together. Because the Obama administration is basically was look, they're sweetheart humanitarians and everything, but they didn't know anything about economics, and they were scrambling all the time. And they implemented net neutrality as a kind of Federal Reserve for the internet. It's like, right? So let's bring in all the big stakeholders. Let's see what they want, And that's what net neutrality was. It was like, okay, so now we got Netflix and we've got Amazon and all the incumbent Facebook, all the incumbent players. What do they want? They want free access. They want access to everybody's homes without being charged for, with having free access, basically. They wanted to fix prices. And so then the Obama administration went to Verizon, and they went to Comcast, and they went to all the big providers, and they said, shouldn't you give, equal access to everybody who wants it, And they're like, well, yeah, not so much. However, and this is what all producers in the history of government regulation have concluded, we are willing to pay this price, provided you can fix in place a system that will apply to our competition. So we can build a moat around ourselves and therefore exclude the people we really fear around the corner. And we can lock down the system for ourselves. So that's what net neutrality was. It was a kind of cartel between content providers and ISPs to stop progress and limit access to the next level. And that's where we were stuck for like 3 years until just a couple of weeks ago, And so I'm so grateful for the repeal of net neutrality. And I know that like today, wherever you are, you're in Kansas, you're in a weird subdivision in Virginia, you're sort of languishing somewhere in Oregon, and you've only got one or two suppliers, and you're afraid you're going to get charged by Twitter. You're afraid that Facebook is going to be dinging you $3 a month. And I can't promise you that that's not going to happen like immediately. But what matters is that we need a competitive process in place. And if the charges get too high, I promise you, there are people waiting in the wings that are ready to destroy your local monopoly. I mean, they're so hungry to smash your lack of alternatives. And in the future, I think it's not just that you will get lower prices. I think you might end up being paid for every bit of surfing you do if we have the right competitive system in place. But we had to destroy net neutrality in order to get to set a playing field of competition in place. And I think that's where we're going.
So the way you say that makes sense to me for sure. So why are so many people and people that we like Darren was saying, like normally sort of open-minded about a variety of topics that we talk about on the show. And I mean, we stay in the middle on a lot of things really, but why are so many people... I
came out pretty vocal against net neutrality.
Yeah, you did.
In the end. And I took a lot of shit for it too.
Yeah, but you came out vocal. But why are so many people not realizing this?
I think it has something to do with the meme culture. I mean, we've got a whole generation of people that want to be activists for something. They want to defend human dignity and human rights, which is cool, right? They want to do the right thing. And somehow defending net neutrality became the thing. And I don't think it was just that was it. It became a meme, essentially. And a lot of people hadn't thought carefully about the subject. Thought, well, I want to make a difference in the world, so they begin to retweet pro net neutrality stuff. But it's not just that. There's another factor too, and I hesitate to even bring it up, and I don't think I've ever spoken about this publicly. But part of me suspects that we've got a generational divide. Like, let's say you live in an apartment complex, and it's an apartment complex with a diverse demographic. Some old people, some middle-aged people, and some young people. So young people are downloading torrents all the time. They're working contractual jobs, they're driving for Uber, and they're sitting at home consuming massive bandwidth. and they're living right below some old lady, who just, the only thing she knows that the internet is for is to boot up her AOL account and see if she's heard from her grandkids, right? So she's using very little bandwidth, and the young generation is using a ton of bandwidth. And I think there was a kind of an intuition on the part of the young demographic that they're benefiting, that basically the old people and the young people everybody's being charged the same, for the same access. And they have some sense that they want to continue to benefit from this system, which they're high users and they're getting the low-level users to subsidize them. So I think that's why it kind of fleshed out that way in a demographic sense. And it's kind of a cruel way to put it, but I really feel like that's essentially it. But I think it's very short-sighted. Like young people too, even heavy users, should favor the repeal of net neutrality, because ultimately what you really want, you want to get a flyer in your door from the coolest, newest system of internet access that is not just charging you, $10 a month or $1 a month, but even better, they want to pay you $10 a month to surf the internet. They're like, we love your torrenting. We love that you're a heavy user. We're going to pay you for your attention because you're so dedicated to your internet usage. And that's what's going to happen. That will happen if we have a competitive system. We don't have one yet, but we had to get rid of net neutrality in order to inspire the creation of that. And that, I believe, is our future. I think in the future, we're all going to be making money by surfing. I mean, this is where we're headed, because your mental bandwidth is the most valuable commodity there is. What you pay attention to, there are entrepreneurs out there willing to pay you for how you use your brain. And I think young people that were somehow stuck on the side of net neutrality were not visionary enough. They don't see the future.
Well, where are they? I'm sorry.
Yeah,
It just
that's
blurted out. Where are we with that? Because I've been thinking about that a lot lately.
Yeah.
With the different podcasts, they all have different models, and one provides content for like $5 a month. Another one provides for half. You get half for free, and then the other half for $5. And another model is free, and we're just hoping that you give us. Those are just the ones that I'm kind of thinking of.
Yeah, no, I get it. And that's where we are today. But I mean, like,
and it's trying to find its like, there's got to be like almost the internet to me is a utility, and it needs to be priced as such. And I think that maybe has a lot to do with the net neutrality aspect of it all.
Yeah, I don't know what it means to say it's a utility. If it's like gas or electricity. I don't think you want
the internet, the bandwidth that you're using, you should be paying for just that much, just like with gas or with electricity.
But gas is also not competitively provided to you, or electricity. I mean, you're being charged for things, and on a monopoly provision. I hope that our future of internet is not about monopolies. And I think
without monopolies, that's right. Yeah, the free market would make it so that monopolies can't exist.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
we have monopolies now because it's not a free market.
It's not a free market, and just so that I'm clear, I don't think the repeal of net neutrality makes it a free market. I think it gets us in the right into the right direction. But like, we had to get through this step. But in the future, I hope that we're going to have endless competition. You should be able to choose between 12 different providers, as far as I'm concerned. Well,
right? Geez, I mean, in Canada here, we just for cable, for example, and the internet comes in a package. Like, we basically have, I think, two main ones to choose from, and you're stuck paying. Like, if you want a fast internet and some basic cable, which I mean, I don't even want, but it's not even worth not getting at this point. I know Michael probably doesn't have cable, but we're looking at $200 a month around. if, you know, and we're stuck with that. I mean, we basically to pay, I mean, I could get internet for cheaper than that, but I mean, the package deal that we're sold between these one or two
I
companies
just have internet, and it's 100, and for the 150, which is what I need really, is $120 a month. And I have two choices. Actually, I only have one choice, because if I switch to Telus out here, they don't have high speed yet. So if I switch to Telus, I can only get 6 up, 6 down. So if I want any real high speed, it has to be Shaw.
Yeah.
That's it.
So you have one choice.
One choice. Luckily, they only charge me $120 a month.
You know, I hope you don't mind my telling the goofy story about Atlanta, where I live in Atlanta, Georgia, but I live in an apartment complex that like 10 years ago made a contract with an internet provider called Broadstar. And this is the worst company ever, right? No. What, you know about this company?
No, I could just imagine 10 years ago.
No, it was so bad. And when I moved here, I mean, it ruined my life. I mean, you know, this company was just like, it was shutting down all the time. I had to have my, what do you call it? You know, like hotspot, AT&T hotspot, using it all the time. They were charging $gazillion, and I was getting nothing. Of trying to watch Netflix, it would like flake out or whatever. But, you know, one of the funny things I've learned, and I hope you don't mind my saying this, over the course of sort of growing up with the digital age, is that when things are bad, that's good, because people get pissed and people like scream and yell. And if there's even a modicum of competition left in the system, the providers adapt. And so I had a lot of my friends move out from my apartment complex who were like, oh, the internet sucks here. I'm out of here. I'm done. But I hung on because I just know that like people are bitches, basically. You know, and if I could like inspire some sort of revolutionary movement, you know, here in my apartment complex, we would eventually figure out a way to intimidate these assholes and to getting better. And it turns out we did, right? So I led a movement, you know, a mail campaign, an email campaign, just, you know, public humiliation, you know, bad Google reviews and so on. Eventually the company came around and they got terrified that they were going to be sued for what's clearly an illicit and unjust system. And they got tremendously scared of it. Just the masses were extremely upset. So one day they just upgraded all their hardware and software and firmware, and now we're getting we've all been given two different connections, each 100 down. So now I've got like more internet bandwidth than I know what to do with. And all the people who moved away feel like, you know, they're lame. And my only worry is that our internet is so awesome now that my rent's going to go up, actually. So so that's what you have to do. You know, you just press and press and press, and then it just gets better. But the cool thing about having it localized like that is that you can actually make a difference if it's federalized and you have, you know, like the Obama administration, you know, just like putting some rule for the nation, then you don't have a voice anymore.
Well, that's what we feel like here with the two choices that we have. It feels governmental. I mean, I know Shaw and TELUS, the two big companies, are not government. They feel like it. I don't know about you guys, but all these electrical companies, all our utility companies, and now the cable companies feel like government organizations. You can't get through. You can't. I mean, it's just not subject to change, it feels like. I mean, I know I shouldn't have that defeatist attitude, and maybe we could make a difference, but I mean, all you can do is switch back and forth between one and the other. You can use one against the other, and that seems to be about it.
That's why I believe in local control. Yeah. You know, like even if it's a local monopoly, it's way better than
federal
monopoly. So if it's local, you can, like, you know, I remember like in the early days when I moved in this place, you know, just like greeting the repairman at the door, and I'd say, "Hey, dude, you suck. Your company sucks, dude. You know, like my life is hell because of you." And he would just feel bad, right? He would just feel bad. He was like, "You know, look, it's just a job, man. I'm just trying to, you know, just trying to provide you internet. But like, yeah, okay, I know it's not you, but when you go back to your office, you need to tell, somebody there that your company is terrible. You're ruining my life. You'd be like, yeah, okay, I do my best. And I remember in the transition point, I'm not sure what it's like in Canada, but in the U.S. everything's in flux. In the transition point, Broadstar, they lamely tried to improve our lives, but they only took half measures. And they sent out an email one morning. They said, we're going to provide you breakfast tomorrow morning. And so everybody in the entire apartment complex is out there to get their free breakfast from these lame ass people. And their breakfast sucked. I mean, it was like a breakfast bar, like a granola bar. Yeah, it was like a granola bar plus, like a cup of orange juice or something. And everybody's like, what? This is your breakfast? Your breakfast is as bad as your internet. So there are crowds of people screaming at this company.
But it's almost as though they're making fun of you because they have complete control. You have no other choice. And they give you the service, and then they can give you a shitty breakfast, and they're just making fun of you the whole time.
That's the way everybody felt.
Where the way I think it should be is that you pay for what you use. Your device can rate how good the reception is or how good the quality of the internet is. And the base of the pay could be that as well. So like you said, you're not sitting on a bunch of data that you're not going to use, and the guy beside you is out of data 3 weeks into the month,
Exactly. I mean, no, that's where we're headed. That's why we need to get to a competitive system. I'm just saying that I think that pressure from the people is the only way we're going to be able to achieve this. And the reason I celebrated the Trump administration's repeal of net neutrality is that it brought the problem down to the local level where we can actually have an influence. And whereas so long as the federal government, I don't know what to tell you guys, but I don't trust centralized governments to make our lives better. I just don't.
I feel the same way. I always look at it as in its current state anyway, for the most part. In Canada, it's pretty corporatized in a lot of ways and tough to do, but with corporations in the most sense, I can always, quit. But once it's the government, they have different powers over me to use violence that corporations don't have.
That is so true. It's so true. I mean, if it's controlled by the federal government, you're never going to win. I just, even if they have humanitarian, lovely ideals, in the end, it's controlled by the people who can get access to the power. That's why it always was with central governments. I mean, in the case of net neutrality, it was an interesting case because it seemed, on the books like a good idea, but it never is a good idea. If the government's in control, if the federal government's in control, central government's in control, you're going to be screwed over one way or the other. And it's always the same thing. It's this little kabuki dance that goes on between the largest, providers on both ends. Whether it's the ISPs or the content providers. They were doing a little dance with each other, and it was disgusting. I mean, it was sickening to see. Verizon and Comcast, with Amazon and the rest of these parasites, pretending to protect the consumer against voracious capitalism. It's like, we could use a little more capitalism, actually. Not you loser companies, you incumbent establishment companies that, were born 10, 15, 20 years ago. I mean, the companies I care about are the ones that don't yet exist. They're the services that some dude is dreaming up in his garage. It's the disruptors, the revolutionaries who are figuring out weird distributed ways to give me internet for free. Not just for free, but paying me to surf. Those are the ones that I care about. The companies that don't yet have their business model in place, but they're dreaming. They're the dropouts. The kid that was that was admitted to Harvard, and he hates the guts of his classes. So he leaves to hang out with his buddies. And they're dreaming of some new distributed system to provide the world the internet, to share bandwidth.
Like peer-to-peer is a good example of that, isn't it?
Exactly. That's where we're headed. And, we need to not be thinking about in the next 12 months. We need to be thinking about the next 50 years. And in the future, the internet's going to be a peer-to-peer service. It really is. We're going to be able to share excess bandwidth, from places like South Korea or China or Mongolia or South America, and some node somewhere in San Jose is not using enough of the internet, but that as much internet as he's bought. And we're going to be able to borrow that to get our torrents.
Can you guys explain peer-to-peer a little bit for the listeners?
Why don't you go ahead?
Peer-to-peer is just like, it's mostly used for torrenting, but it's basically, you've kind of got some semi sort of centralized search engines that you're using to find the torrents. But then once you find the torrent, you're not downloading it from a central location. Like say if you download a program, it'll be coming from up to, some of these people will have, hundreds of seeders. So you'll download as quick as your internet will allow you. Other ones, you won't have so many. The rarer things, you'll have less seeders. But basically, it's a system where there's no in between. I'm downloading things directly off of other people's computers. Right.
So like Jeffrey said, like you're sharing bandwidth with each other as well as content then? Is that what you would say?
I guess in some sense, because they're paying for the upload on their end if they're paying for their data, and I'm paying for the download on my end, and I'm taking microbits from 30 different users, and so that I'm not bogging down their system when I'm downloading something off of their hard drive. And if you're a good seeder, then you leave your stuff after you download it for a little bit and give back to the community for, different people have different rules, and the pricks just delete it right away. Those are the people who are kind of leeching off the system like the government.
So we've been using peer-to-peer services for content for a very long time, as much as 17 years.
Right.
But what we need to be doing is using peer-to-peer for the internet itself. That's where it gets really radical and really crazy.
That's what James talks about. He says where you can start ping-ponging off your neighbors after the internet goes down. He's going to build us a network like off everyone's routers.
Private Wi-Fi network kind of thing. Yeah. Well, you guys are a couple dropouts and start dreaming in your garage. We're in the garage. We're in the...
This is our future. I mean, I hope you understand the world we're headed towards. And I think you have to have something of a vision to realize just the artificiality of third-party intermediaries and the role they play in our lives, whether it's banks, ISPs, governments, all these people who are making a shit ton of money off of us by providing services they claim that we could provide to each other as individuals. Wherever we live on a geographically non-contiguous basis, so that I'm, my friend in Japan is giving me, internet service because he's out on a date tonight. I mean, that's where we need to be, and there's no intermediary that's stopping us. This is a world of you could call it anarchy if you want. But really, it's a kind of an orderly system of figuring out how to get along with each other.
Yeah,
in a way that bypasses powerful institutions like banks and ISPs and governments ultimately that have masqueraded as peacekeepers for hundreds of years, and it turns out that human relationships are really about my connection to you. It's what I'm willing to do for you and what you are willing to do for me. If we can have a technological and social system that's based on that structure, it will not be perfect, but it'll be the best possible outcomes we could ever have. There's nobody smarter than you and me together. And we need technologies that link us together as individuals. And I say it's true for money, for law, for internet access, for everything. So what I'm really seeing coming in the future is a world of extreme individualist anarchism, in which our relationships with each other aren't governed by jurisdictional geography, but rather by interest and association and the things that our dreams, the dreams that we have as individuals, that we can link up with other people in the world who we don't know, that we can dream similar dreams. That's where we're headed, and we're headed there fast. It's happening in our lifetimes, and my major goal is to get rid of anything that stands between us and that.
Nice.
Well, for us, I mean, for a perfect example, I mean, our big hang-ups on like centers of power are PayPal and the banks and our bank accounts that we now have to pull our money out of. So in a way, we're kind of starting to develop with the podcast. We're starting to develop that sort of volunteer system where we don't want to tie in with advertisers and we don't want to get into bed with affiliates or any of that bullshit. We're just going to, you pay us. You like the show, you pay us. Not because you have to, because you want to. And I think once we can get PayPal and these people out of the way, then we really are kind of invincible, because we like to joke about how, I mean, this YouTuber jackass that filmed that dead body is a perfect example. I mean, I don't know. I'm not saying I'd agree with what he did or anything like that, but instantly you've got 1 million people screaming for him to be demonetized. And I will bet you dollars to donuts that he's going to end up demonetized. So the masses were able to kind of, in a way, shut this guy down. I think his following's big enough that he's going to be able to bounce back.
I also have the Vegas. Was that today?
It was like, I'm not totally up to speed on it either. I'm not a big YouTube guy, but this guy's got like 60 million or 100 million subscribers or whatever. He's making a shit ton of money off of YouTube ads, and he went into the suicide forest in Japan and ended up getting a hanging body on tape, I think. And a bunch of people freaked out and are calling for his demonetization. And I think regardless of what he does, that's a dangerous thing.
That's a very bad man. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, and I agree. Regardless of what he's done, is now the masses are going to be able to shut him off.
The masses who don't even listen
to his show are going to be able to shut him off. Whereas, in order to shut down,
somebody,
I mean, we're a bad example because we're still building this. But if in the ideal world, once it's built, your income is based off of 10,000 people giving you a couple dollars a month. So now you need to get into the hearts and minds of those people individually and have them turn on you, as opposed to some exec at YouTube that starts feeling the pressure.
It's just like that Black Mirror episode.
I haven't seen those yet.
The new one, or
just
the old
like
one?
That. Yep. Your work is based on what people think of you.
I don't know what your feelings are about this issue of censorship, but I believe in a censorship-free world. I really do. I want to know. I want to know whatever it is. I want to know it, and I think anybody who wants to show it to us, tell it to us, reveal it to us. I don't think that we should have systems that stop that.
No, it should take care of itself.
Yeah, I mean, if Twitter wants to block accounts, fine. If Facebook wants to ban you because you show something that you shouldn't, okay, that's fine. They all have the right. But in the end, I really do believe in free information flows, and whatever that amounts to. I want to know the truth, and I guess I don't know if you've read Voltaire's Candide, but the idea of freedom is not that we're going to create a perfect world where everything you see and everything you experience is just lovely and perfect and appeals to you spiritually and gets you to heaven and all the rest of it. Rather, it's that if we have freedom, we'll eventually discover the truest possible thing, and it'll be up to us as individuals to make that decision. And I really believe in that system. I'm a liberal at my core. I don't think control is a better solution than liberality. And there's lots of ideas I don't like. I don't like Nazism. I don't like racism. I don't like communism.
Most of the isms are bad.
Right. There's a lot of things I don't like. But I do believe in the freedom of people who do believe those things to be able to express themselves. Because I think ultimately it's the only way we as humans are going to discover the truth is by having open access. You know, to be able to look at things that we disagree with, and to be able to. The human mind is very restless, you know. And if somebody tells us don't look at that, don't think that, what are we going to do? You know, we're drawn to it. That's who we are as individuals. We have restless minds. And I'm not interested in gutting our humanity, really. I'm interested in unleashing it because I fully trust the possibilities of an open world that will eventually, if we have enough openness, find through a process of discovery the best thing within us. I really believe this.
I do too.
So you've been around and at this a little while. Because I've talked to some other, they call themselves sort of old school liberals that are sort of in that mid 50s range. And because in my day, in the liberals I see in power in Canada don't have any of those sort of ideals of freedom and everything else. It's more about, it's gone from equal opportunity to equal outcome.
Right. Yeah, there's something especially within intellectuals that imagines that they can plan the world, but it's all pretense. It's all pompous nonsense, really. Nobody knows anything. And that's the reason we have freedom. It's so that we can discover what we don't know. If we already knew, we wouldn't need freedom, you know? If we already knew the truth, we would just codify it and institutionalize it and impose it, and the world would end, you know?
Kind of like the church.
Yeah, like a lot of things, right? We don't, but the truth is that that's a lie. You know, people who claim to come to you and say, well, I know so much truth that I'm willing to bet on it in such a hardcore way that I'm willing to use violence to impose it. And people like that are dangerous, really, because they want to stop the progress of the world. And I only believe in the process of discovery. I only believe in the idea that tonight I will go to bed, I will put my head on my pillow, and I will go to bed tonight, and I will say, I am stupid compared to what I might be tomorrow. Tomorrow, I might know more. Next week, I'll know even more. Next month, I'll discover something that currently humanity does not know. 10 years from now, there will be a world that I can't right now imagine, right? We need to come to terms with this as human beings. We need to be that kind of person that can rest with comfort in our uncertainty and in our ignorance, so that we can wake up to a better world tomorrow. But we have to come to terms with freedom. We have to be willing to embrace it and love it if we want to live in that kind of world.
Humanity could use a little more wonder these days and a little less, you know.
Well, I mean, that's what our little community of Grimerica is like. We really try not to be.
I heard it said pretty good the other day, is like, quit fucking worrying about what you don't want and start spending some time thinking about what you do want.
Yeah,
just
right?
see what happens just doing that.
Yeah, and try to make it a reality for yourself, you know? I mean, try to make it a reality for yourself and for others. And, you know, the odd thing about the human mind is that, in a strange way, that's what we're really good at. We're really good at getting better at things, you know? We're not good at perfecting things. We're not good at knowing the final truth. But we're pretty good at improving things. So to me, that's the benefit of freedom, is that it allows us to have that sort of terrain of play, as Sigmund Freud called it, you know, to discover the new way towards happiness, which we will never finally achieve.
But that would be really great, as long as society could agree to think en masse 7 generations ahead of now.
Yeah.
And so that nothing we do between now and then
We'll stop that.
harms
Yeah.
them, but actually makes it better for them. And
Yeah.
if all of society was thinking that way and moving in that direction, instead of just saying, okay, no more laws, everybody go buck wild, like you probably kill off like a bunch of people right away. I mean,
You know, for like 500 years, humanity has had this weird moment in history, during which time we vaguely began to realize that we needed freedom to find out things. And it happened at the end of the religious wars in Europe. I mean, there was all these arguments. Should we be Catholic? Should we be Protestant? You know, should we believe in transubstantiation or consubstantiation? You know, is there a succession of priesthood? You know, and so on and so on. And people were killing each other for so long. And finally, one day, people woke up and said, "Well, how about we have a new system?" And it goes like this: you can believe whatever you want, so long as you don't hurt other people for believing something that's different. And basically, Europe agreed, you know, and the Treaty of Westphalia happened, you know, and gradually this system of liberty unfolded, and brilliant minds said, well, why don't we do the same thing for speech? How about for print? How about for trade? How about we just have liberty for everybody? And the only rule is don't hurt anyone, you know, and that system is what made our lives so much better than they ever were before. And it was at that moment in history, it was like in a blink of an eye, we suddenly got rich, we got technologies, we upgraded ourselves as animals to such an extent. And then we turned against it in the 20th century. We're like, the system sucks, liberty sucks or whatever. Let's impose the final solution, you know.
Well, I think some of that has to do with the because in the States, and I love going down to the Pacific Northwest and going through Oregon and Washington and Idaho, because you see these little free markets that literally don't exist in Canada anymore.
Really?
And sometimes in Canada, I wonder, if it isn't too late, because, and I've done this rant several times on the show, so I apologize for the people that have heard it before, but I mean, I've driven across most of Canada, and every fucking city or town you stop into is going to have that same business center with the same 15 stores. You got 3 places to get coffees. You got 4 different fast food restaurants. Maybe you got an Outback Steakhouse and a Red Lobster and a Olive Garden and a Walmart and a Staples. But, I could write down 20 companies on a piece of paper, and you could go for a road trip down the Trans-Canada, and you're not going to see too many companies that aren't on that fucking list. I forget where I was going with that.
Well, I think I don't know.
Can I say the T word, the technocracy word? Can you guys hear me? Is this good?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Technocracy. So is that an okay word to say in this?
Not bad. I mean, that's existed for 100 years. So
exactly. But the ideal, from what I understand, is that every joule is counted. And all the way across the board and everything, resources and expenditures and everything on the entire planet. You have to have control of it all. And if you look at that, that's really kind of the way we're marching. So in a lot of ways, a lot of these things are going to be figured out anyway. The monetization of your own thoughts, so... Yeah. That platform is being built right now, I'm sure. And it's just waiting to take off. And quantum computers need data as food. So once they build these things and monetize it so that you can have your little drip of money, then all that data is feeding the quantum computers. And they're just getting faster and smarter. No, am I wrong on that?
No, it's very exciting times in which we live, and I'm most excited about it because, I mean, in the last 9 years, we've seen unleashed on the world technologies that have actually subverted the capacity of governments to control things, and it takes a while to mature, but we actually have it. We have the blockchain. We have peer-to-peer networks. And all these things live outside of geography, and governments live within geography. The new digital networks live outside of geography, and governments live within physical space. The new distributed networks live outside of physical space. So there's a war for the human heart and the human mind taking place between digits and governments. And that's the essence of the times in which we live. And between the two, I'm betting on digits because I think technology has a way of outlasting any regime. Like regimes are just dudes with power, but ideas, that's where the real power is. That's where the brilliance happens. That's where the immutability is. Those are the things that live in the human mind.
So how do we monetize it?
You can't monetize a network.
Yeah, that's the great trick going forward.
What's the right way? That's the question, I guess.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. And I think the answer is counterintuitive in a way. I remember I remember the very first time somebody sent me a link. They said, you should try this new search engine called Google. And I looked at it and I thought, well, that's pretty awesome. But it'll never make money because it's free. I couldn't think my way around it. I couldn't figure out how Google could ever make money. And it was a similar thing with Facebook. Eventually, I think ultimately the ultimate commoditizable thing in this world is our minds. It's our attention. It's our willingness of our hearts to focus on something. And if we can ever more come up with economic systems that can commoditize that and monetize that, then I think we'll live in a more humane world. And I think we're getting there. It's just taking us a long time.
I would probably tend to agree, especially, I mean, it seems like the last big pillar to fall is going to be energy. Like when we can figure that one out and I can drive my car without going to Petro-Canada and shit like that, or without having this gas bill or the hydro or the electricity bill.
And plugs on our walls. I mean, I'm embarrassed every time I stick a plastic thing with prongs, into the wall. I'm like, dude, this sucks so
That's
much.
funny. I was just thinking that the other day because I was plugging in my MacBook Air. It's pretty old now, but still, when you look at it, it's a nice thing. It's a nice state-of-the-art computer. And I plug this thing into the wall, and it gives that little, every once in a while you get that little blue spark that shoots out as you're plugging it in. And it's just like, this is where we're at. I can touch the screen on this thing and talk to anybody in the fucking world. But I got to prong it in. I'm just like hungry every day for this world because I know it's coming, and we have to break through the monopolies to get there. But the other day I picked up an iPhone X, which I love. I truly love it. But I bought a charger for it that doesn't require a plug. Yeah, I've seen those.
Oh, listen, it's such a vision of the future, and it's a little lame now, but you have to plug. Yeah, you have to plug it in, and so that's stupid, right? But ultimately, you set your little miracle device, which is the iPhone X, and you just throw it on top of this little thing, and the machine, I don't know, discerns its presence and starts pumping it full of charge, and you can feel what's coming. We're going to live in a wireless world. I mean, we're just at the beginning of this. I mean, I think we all need to think of ourselves as, I don't know, just the first generation that experienced fire for the first time, or railroads, something like that, like we're just at the beginning of this.
So we're going to have to watch our whole village be burned down?
Probably once or twice. Probably once or twice, yeah.
I mean, is it going to be like we're going to be the Mayan? We just all of a sudden, they don't know why everyone disappeared because they discovered
they had the fucking internet. The Mayans made the internet, 5G, and that was it.
And it just killed everybody. And like,
But for now, I mean, you're surrounded by wires. You can look around yourself right now.
Oh man, this right here, I feel sick for a day after being in here for a while.
Yeah,
The
too many wires.
podcast studio is an old walk-in freezer converted into a studio with an unbelievable amount of electronics inside it.
This TV right here that I can almost touch, when you walk by it within like a foot and a half, you go deaf in one ear.
Right?
It's a little older.
We live in a physical world.
But I
it's
mean,
like-
that being said, I know more people, and this is something that 15 or 20 years ago, there was nothing. It was like the people that got out of the workaday world were the people that were, you know, day traders, or they started a business that they, that, you know, for the most part needed their attention for 40 years or 30 years before maybe they could retire comfortably and things like that. And all of a sudden, you know, in the last 5 years, I can't count on the digits on my body the amount of people I know that have given that up, started their own highly successful businesses with zero to no, or, you know, very limited overhead, and now are working 2 days a week and making more than they would have made, you know, in a year and 5 years at their old job, packing meat or whatever they were doing. And they're doing it from thousands of different people that just want to chip in. And I mean, like Michael was saying, with the different models, whether it's going to be paywalls or forums, the way Corbett does it, that if you want to comment, or whether the value for value way that we're doing it is going
It just seems like there should be a standard.
well, I think there will be a standard eventually, or there will be something that becomes more popular. I think the problem with the value for value thing right now is it's still not easy enough. So you have to go through PayPal. So you probably have to have a credit card and blah, blah, blah. Once it's to the point that, you know, and there's kind of minimums, when it gets to the point that someone can just send us, you know, 5 cents every episode or something like that easily, and they just do it through blockchain and it doesn't cost them anything, and it's just like bang, bang, then all of a sudden maybe you can get to 50% of people supporting you instead of 1 or 2%. But I mean, people are managing to survive on that 2%. So I think that's like, we're already starting to see that revolution where people are breaking free from the workaday world and starting these companies, whether it be YouTube or, I mean, I still like the podcast model a little bit better because YouTube is highly centralized. And like I was talking about before, you're seeing people getting shut down because whether it's advertisers or other people bitching, that's a weak spot. So I guess where I'm going with this is I don't know what model is going to win out for podcasting and this sort of media, whether it's going to be the value for value or the subscription model or the paywall model or the cut the interview in half model and pay for the rest, but it's not going to be advertising.
It could be that you will tokenize your podcast in the future. And one of the weird things that happened in 2017 is that we saw tokenization of services take off as a venture capitalist model, a democratized version of venture capitalization, and it
you
was
mean like
amazing.
Crowdsourcing?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you start a service, right? So you've got a podcast, and so you create a token around your podcast, and then that token begins to go out on the markets, and people buy the token, and it itself becomes something that people buy and provides you funding. I mean,
so that would be like almost having your own cryptocurrency in a sense.
Exactly, and I'm sorry I don't have the data immediately at hand, but in 2017, the amount of venture funding that was provided through ICOs exceeded that which was done by conventional old form venture capitalization, and of course, exactly at the moment when ICO funding exceeded old style VC funding, the SEC came along and said, "Oh, this is bad. This is a security. If you're going to do this, you have to register with us," and it freaked everybody out, right? At least in the United States, but there's plenty of places in the world where that level of control did not happen, one of which is Russia. So one of the things that happened in Russia in 2017 is that $300 million were raised through ICOs. ICOs in Russia are out of control. So anybody who's got anything to offer the world, they tokenize it, and it becomes a tradable ownership claim in a protocol, basically. And so we democratized capitalism at that moment.
Is that why everyone hates Putin so much?
300 million's not much.
Well, it's not that much, but it's a good start. And that figure's only in my head because I read about the topic today. But I'm sorry I don't have other figures in my head. But I've written about ICOs. But ICOs are the future. They'll probably be called something else because the SEC shut them down this year.
Don't you think it'll be standardized, though? I mean, the governments can only allow things to grow to a certain amount, and then they have to cut it off and standardize it.
But I mean,
that's what they do. So we'll probably end up... Oh, I'm sorry.
I do. I get embarrassed for civilization by these kind of efforts. I really do. I mean, like... In the 12th century, some people in Europe invented the horseshoe, and it was a great moment in the history of civilization because you took a beast and you gave it longevity, and you gave it like 10 times the power. Like a horse with an iron shoe is a lot more powerful, like 10, 20 times more powerful than a horse without an iron shoe. All right, so somebody invented the horseshoe. And we don't know who it was, but, right, we don't even have a name. But we know it happened because there weren't any horseshoes in the 9th century, and there were in the 13th century. So somewhere in there, somebody invented the horseshoe. And that transformed agriculture. It made our crops become 10, 100 times more fruitful than they were before. This beast we called the horse became a mega beast, this like overnight because of one invention. So here's the question you have to ask yourself. Let's say some baron or lord or some, potentate, and some German principality have banned the horseshoe. Would it have gone away? Would it have just disappeared from the history of the earth? I don't think so. Ideas are more powerful than governments. The horseshoe was an awesome thing. A good idea whose time has come cannot be stopped. Maybe it can be stopped for a few years. They can slow it down. Maybe they'll delay progress for a decade, something like that. But ultimately, it's going to prevail. And I feel this way about ICO technology, about the capacity to tokenize your human efforts. So I look at this, I think about this in light of your podcast, right? So let's say you could just tokenize your podcast and put out a token about your awesomeness and invite the world to buy your token. And suddenly you're flooded with money. And let's say you do something.
Tokenize me, man. Tokenize me.
Right. And let's say you do something truly immoral, like pay people to pump your coin, and that gives you suddenly hundreds of thousands of dollars, even millions of dollars of funding. I just don't see the problem there. I mean, to me, that's where we're headed. Like everything we do should be monetized. We should be celebrated by the whole world for our dignity, our awesomeness, our talents. And we need a technology to make that possible. I think the ICO gives us an insight into how this is actually possible. And it's not a surprise to me that it was attacked by the U.S. government this year. I mean, but it's bullshit. I mean, it's just not going to last. It's just not going to last. I mean, give it a few years. I mean, money talks. It really does.
Well, the other good thing about tech is like, I actually steal this one from Michael's playbook, but without, I mean, even the people who think we've come too far and, the tech's destroying us, they got to look at the other aspect of it, that all the sort of spiritualism and the inner work and the things that people are having the time to kind of do en masse. Not yet, but they're starting to do it en masse nowadays. And Graham with all his biohacking and I mean, even even you being able to concentrate on whatever is all things that weren't afforded to us even 300 years ago or 500 years ago, because all your fucking time was concentrating on how to survive. So as we can use this tech to sort of free up more of that time, I mean, who knows? Who knows what's fucking possible? When people have time to think about what they actually want, or, you know, how they could improve the world instead of how to fucking make ends meet.
That's right. That's right. And if we can get governments out of the way, we'll figure it out. I have every confidence in the capacity of individuals and innovators and creators and
right out of the gate, do you think? Or do you think we need to like kind of slip into libertarianism for a generation or so, and then sort of, because I always think that anarchy is like maybe too much too soon.
I don't even believe in libertarianism as an ideology. I don't think anybody needs to be conscious of having some theory. I really all we need is to have governments out of the way, and we can figure out the rest. I don't think we need to have an ideology, really.
Are there any examples of that currently? Is there any place in the world we can kind of look to as a small, even example of that?
Yeah, there are indications of this in places like Liechtenstein, I would say, maybe to a lesser extent Switzerland. But the funny thing is that I don't even think it's geographic. I mean, to me, if you don't mind my saying so,
not at all.
You can go to the dark web and see. I don't know how much you're familiar with what goes on the dark web, but you see the capacity for.
I've heard you could buy drugs.
Yeah, well,
but you see anything.
You see the capacity for individuals without any concern for geography to get along and to make a beautiful order among themselves. I mean, basically, yeah, there's some shitheads in the world, but we're not violent people. We're all trying to survive, and all we need is the technology to make that happen, and we'll figure it out. I just don't. I don't think governments are smarter than individuals. I don't. I think individuals themselves are. Maybe we're not brilliant, but we're scrappy.
It's kind of a weird oxymoron in a sense, because it's like you get that. Where a person is smart, but people are stupid. But at the same time, the power of the collective mind in the sort of the hive mind sense with that the internet allows is
well, the government
unstoppable.
Is supposed to be thinking 7 generations
I know. Right?
Yeah, they're
setting standards so that some Yahoo doesn't fuck it all up.
They've hijacked. The government's been hijacked.
And I've been spending a lot of time these days with Freud, and I'm sorry to report that to you, but I adore his writings and his thinking, and he's very suspicious of collective groupthink, as embodying governments, but he's very confident about the capacity of individuals to work through all their problems and to find ways to make a better life. For ourselves, so long as we have freedom and the ability to fix the problems as we discover them, and to find new ways of doing things. And I don't know. I'm feeling like our technology is allowing us to do this in a way. And whereas like 50 years ago, as 100 years ago, we didn't know we could do this. Really, we relied on these, I think, false gods of governments essentially. And religions to some extent too, but mainly states, because religions can be grotesque in the sense that they can intimidate you and trick you and create a lot of illusions. But governments are worse because they can actually like put you in jail. And I don't know if you've ever been in jail, but there's something really, really weird about being on one side of the bars, and they're really bars and they're steel, and you're sitting there, and looking on the other side of the bar and you're like, fuck you. You think you can keep me? Yes, you can.
And that's at the freest levels, right?
Oh, I'm sorry you were angry. I was not angry. I had a pretty good time, actually.
In Vail?
Yeah, I was just there overnight, so.
Oh, and listen,
But I was just fucking with everybody, man. I mean, I was asking for stuff every 10 minutes. And I had everybody laughing. It was awesome. I thought it was fun. It was like,
you're a good sport.
Not that I want to go there for like a long time. That's not what I'm saying. It was just
but there's
one
something
night.
really weird about the other side of the bars. You're like I'm on this side, you're on that side, you know. And I don't know. There's something about the barbarism. I mean, that really there's a reason they're called bars. I mean,
well, why is it called blockchain? If that doesn't imply slavery, I don't know what does. Like, if they want to sell this as a new tech, that was for
we need a better name. You're
everything to be
right.
built
No
upon.
block, no chain.
That was not the right words.
Yeah, I agree
I'm
with you on that.
totally yelling, and I apologize to all of you.
Something other than chain, right?
So,
gentlemen, I've got to head out. I'm so sorry. It's so fun to hang out with you tonight. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for coming on the show. And yeah, it's been fun.
We went a long way from net neutrality to Freud, so that's good.
That's usually
awesome.
how it goes.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
awesome.
usually how it goes. Okay, well, big thanks, Jeff, for coming on the show. Well, any place our listeners can track you down or follow your work if they're so inclined?
I'm the editorial director of the American Institute for Economic Research. I'm very, very honored to be associated with this illustrious institution. It makes me very happy, and I was very pleased to hear you read that name tonight. So you can find all my writings there, and I write every day. So, and otherwise, you know, you can a quick Google will pull up a lot of things. But thank you so much for having me, and thank you for being such wonderful and thoughtful colleagues. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you. You look like such a wonderfully happy person. So continue that for everyone else's sake.
Thank you, my friends.
Thanks.
Take care.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
And that was our chat with Mr. Jeffrey A. Tucker. That was a fun one.
Yeah, you know what? I had
Was
a
I too
question.
much?
You
I
got,
felt
no,
like
you know what? You for once, I actually didn't get a question in. You guys were.
Did you not ask
stealing
a
the
single
show.
question?
No. I mean the question I wanted to,
Oh.
which was, you know how he talked about his vision of the future and how in the 20th century freedom sort of fell apart. It seemed. And yet I wanted to know what he thought about the last year since the Trump administration has been. And like, is there been a shift the other way now? Like,
Well,
it seems to me like
He's going to say
freedom has
there
another
is.
chance.
He's going to be there is
right?
because he's a big deregulatory guy. And I think the latest stats on the Trump administration were like, for every new regulation they've instituted, they've kiboshed 16.
So he might see that as a path in the right direction, as
He
opposed
thinks
to
he
just
believes
jumping
in
right
no-
into anarchy like this
Yeah,
is at
he
least in
says
the
it
right
on
direction.
the Corbett report interview that he believes in no regulation. Which, I mean, could be dangerous in its own right, too. But
Yeah, that's a tough one
It's
for
a
me.
constitutional republic. That's
It's
what
tough
it was
to say.
supposed to be. And you're going to have regulation because it's a corporation.
But
so
it's-
there's policy.
it's tough to say because it's never been tried, too. Like, we've never tried the other way of just saying, fuck it, man. Nobody's in charge. Let's see what happens.
What? That's what the U.S. was to start with. That's
Well,
what it
yeah,
was.
that's what it was like a couple hundred years ago. But it hasn't been tried like anytime fucking.
No, it's been heavily regulated.
That's right.
True. And there needs to be a lot less regulation. But you can't say that there would be no regulation. That's craziness. Like, you have to have lines on the road so that everyone stays
No
in their
lines on the
lanes.
road. There's not even
No,
roads.
'cause people
How
will
could you have
stay.
lines on the road when there's no roads?
Okay, so what? We all have flying cars now?
No, but the roads aren't going to get built.
Well, the one thing I did want to say that he was talking about how great it was that he had this free web access that, like, you know, when Google came along, they gave him, he Googled Google and got a free email account, you know, and how wonderful that was. Well, I went to college in a beautiful place on a lake, and I was excited to go to that college because I wanted to play on the lake and in the mountains and everything. But that was in the mid 90s, and all the free Hotmail and Gmail was just becoming a thing. And everybody was inside for as long as the library was open on their computers there, because no one had their own computers, really. I mean, they did, but everybody went to the library or whatever. And they're all on their free emailing each other. Their free, I don't know, what was that thing called? MySpace?
MySpace.
Yeah. And I'm just like, hey, anyone want to take a canoe and go? But it was hard to get people. There was, you know, a very small group. And it sounded like just 10 years earlier, everyone was out. You know, that was like a big reason everyone went there. And from there, that was the mid 90s. That was 20 years ago. So now it's just like, I don't know, man. I think the whole thing is.
There's probably more. I bet you if you went there today, there'd be more people in the canoes.
Maybe. They did have.
Because I think there is that silent sort of uprising of the fucking, you know, the people like you or like my wife that are wanting to get out to nature. There seems to be more of that than there was when I was younger.
And I'm not against the technology by any means. And I'm sorry if he took offense to what I was saying, because I tend to just, I guess, do that. But I mean, the tech is there and it's important, you know. But at the same time, if I have a pencil in my pocket and my iPhone, I know the pencil works every time as long as I can sharpen it.
Well, the real risk of technology, and you guys kind of touched on it in a sec. For a sec, is the real risk is
Graham has no lead in his pencil.
I can't even fucking say anything. We should come
here.
Have
talked about the pencil in my pocket. I'm sorry.
You derailed it into penis jokes.
The real risk is as we rely more on it, the EMP is only a Carrington event away, or a fucking or a malicious.
We're already
act.
fucked from the EMP, so just let tech keep going, so it'll hopefully become EMP proof.
Yeah.
Which is
no, but that's
no
the
such
real
thing as
risk.
Space and nothing leaves low Earth orbit.
I wonder how many Tesla are in Earth orbit. Like if he's going to shoot one to Mars, then he's probably already got one in Earth orbit, right?
There's probably a regulation about
like,
putting a Tesla in orbit.
Can you pay like I don't know, like $10 million?
Apparently, for $10,000, we can put a cube satellite in space that just orbits around, repeating the Grimerica show till it falls to Earth in a couple of years, burns up.
$10,000.
That's what James says. He is the handler.
I don't know. Would you trust that they actually do it, or do they just laugh at you, turn their backs and laugh at you? They're like, "Oh yeah, and it went up there and it burned up."
You just go on the website. No,
exactly.
Not for a couple of years.
They
just film it on a string.
Yeah, apparently they give you a tracking thing, but they could totally just be like sending you like, "Oh, time to ping James." Ding ding. Oh,
and really, your show's just coming through the internet.
Yeah. Go to here. Go to www.grimericasatellite.com.
Yeah, we trust you. It's real.
Anyway, big thanks to Jeffrey for coming on the show.
Yeah, it was awesome, man. Very, very articulate, very, very positive as well.
If you guys enjoy that freedom chat, then help support our freedom by heading over to grimerica.ca/support.
Token up.
And token up with some PayPal money into our account. We don't have a token.
We could really create a meme around that.
You could do Bitcoin and stuff. We could really token it up. Yeah, we could.
I think he's definitely right. Everyone has to have wallets at this point. Do the token.
And when you mentioned standardizing it, that's what he's talking about.
How do you pull it off? I know, and we were agreeing on a lot of it.
Jerry knows how to do it. Jerry could make us a coin. I don't know how it works. I know fucking nothing about it. But
that's different. That's different than the ICO he's talking about, which is interesting because that's the future.
When he's talking about token, that's what he's basically talking about. Grimerica becomes a divisible thing, but instead of having a company with shares, we're a company that has this infinitely divisible fucking token. Whether we make one of them or 10 of them or 100 of them, and that's it. Or you can buy them. We have a jar of them, and you can buy them, and maybe they go up or down.
But it has value.
The whole thing is fucking crazy to me still. I still don't grasp it.
Well, here's the thing. You have to Google and Facebook and all the big companies, they want to monetize all of it. So all the things that you do. So the more things that you input, the more they would pay you for that. Think of Google like a company where they don't pay for you to come to work and sit in their cubicle. Instead, you stay at home or do it from wherever, and you just input data. And so they're paying you for what you're doing all day long. You're monetizing your mental effort, basically, in whatever creative way you want to do. And the more quality,
still be broke.
The more quality, the more thumbs up points that you get, the more you're worth. And so your money is worth whatever the social thinks you're worth.
So head over to grimerica.ca/support and help up our worth.
Yeah. Because, you guys would be worth way more that way because there's so many people that, you know what?
We're worth 0.7%.
Yeah, you're just saying that your donation is so low, right? As a, if you were to aggregate it across all the people that are downloading it. So, but if everyone was giving you a thumbs up or like 5 stars, basically, then you would be gaining money like that.
Yeah,
That's
it's too
right.
Black Mirror for me, man. It's too easy to sabotage that thing.
Well, for now, we'll
that's the
settle
problem,
for a
like-
couple bucks. Sign up for a monthly at the PayPal account, grimerica.ca/support, and support freedom.
He's really trying to end this episode here.
Oh, look, we got a new... Hey, look, just as I said that,
Oh,
new
it's just
sub.
Really?
Sorry,
Nice.
it was such a trick.
As
Couple
I've...
twos too. Two came out.
Oh, you get 2 emails.
Oh,
One's
Come
for
over
the
to the
one's for the
Truvo show.
payment and
thanks
one's
for the new
new
subscription,
You guys ever
Daniel
want to?
B.
Daniel B. Nice.
Still working on
The
it, so
second
be
I talk
patient.
about supporting the show.
Welcome, Daniel B.
So head out to grimerica.ca/support. Do sign up for a monthly, and let's help spread a little freedom. We do have a Bitcoin wallet. I don't know the address offhand, but it is on the support page.
And in the show notes.
And someone is bugging me to make a Litecoin wallet as well. So I figure at this point, every time someone emails me and asks me to make
Well, just be careful with that
to accept a
request.
coin.
Next thing you know, you're going to get,
Well, you got to find a wallet.
dark
Well, that's what I
coin.
mean.
Wallet
People
that
ask
you
me to make
trust.
wallets, so I make a wallet. I'll make this Litecoin wallet, and I think it's okay to have a couple bucks in all these different cryptos.
Okay.
Because if we,
Well,
maybe
that's what
we'll
you
have like
to do.
we'll have like 10 Litecoins. Maybe they'll be worth 20 grand one day.
Alrighty.
Yeah, they're-
Okay. I'll support you in that.
And maybe I'll
Yeah.
accidentally give them
Yeah.
away before that.
If I were you, I'd figure out how to spend them. That sounds to be the problem.
We figured out how to spend our
Yeah,
Bitcoin,
just
and
give
we
it
spent
away.
it too soon.
He gave it away.
No, we
The
spent some
the guy
tune.
never got it back.
Yeah, he's like, no, that never happened. And then I sent him a screenshot of the transaction and dark. Never responded to anything ever again. Too bad, really. But we were able to spend some Bitcoin on some jingles.
Can't we go back after him now? Especially that he's probably made quite a bit. Just ask for 50% profit back. Like, look,
Yeah.
we know you made
Works all
11
the time
grand
when
off.
you, when you just
we
email
know you
people
made
out of the
11
blue and
grand.
ask them
It
for
is.
money.
We know you made 11 grand
You know
off
who it
our
is.
mistake.
I can't remember now. I knew who it was
Oh,
because it was something that I had
It would just
specifically
be a
bought.
funny episode.
It would. We should do it
Because I
Let's
had
fucking
bought, you know what
track
it
him
was?
down.
I
Can't-
think it
don't we
was
have
someone
enough-
on Fiverr. It was someone on Fiverr that I had fucking paid to make me a fucking jingle with Bitcoin. And then I didn't know how to work my
Slipped.
wallet properly. So
like-
someone's like, hey, I'm going to send you some Bitcoin. I'm going to send you half a Bitcoin. And this was when they were only like $200 a
Well, in the
piece.
first days, that was how people were really making good money. It was tricking other people because they didn't know what was going on. The whole
So I
thing
was like, yeah, okay,
totally
send me the
Wild West.
Bitcoin. So I was like, so I went
Not
into my
that he
wallet.
did that. I'm not
No,
saying
he didn't
that
do
guy
that.
did that.
I went into my wallet
Well,
and
he
I
didn't give
sent
it back. That's tricksy enough.
But there were
No, that was
was a
not
good
him
scam.
though. The guy who sent it to
Oh,
me.
yeah,
I
yeah,
just
right.
gave him the
Oh,
wrong
okay.
number. So I
Right.
went into instead of going to my receive, I accidentally clicked on the send page and it had the last address that I had sent money to in there. So I clicked on that, sent it to Buddy. He's like, okay, I sent it over. You see anything? No. Then I realized my mistake. And then I emailed Buddy and he's like, oh no, it never happened. No. So then I sent him the transaction screenshot that Buddy sent to me and then nothing. Crickets.
Let's track him down. Let's fucking
And it was like
track him down and say,
0.57
look, buddy, we
Bitcoin.
know
Well, that's the
we know
thing
it's
is
worth
that
11 grand right now. We
Just
want
give us $100.
fucking
Give me my $100 back.
50% of the profits.
Give us our
please.
$100 back, please.
See the government saying, "Oh, we got caught off guard here. We didn't know. We don't have the jurisdiction and everything all figured out yet."
The government, what?
Well, how are you gonna? You got to find somebody.
Well, we don't got enough dudes named Ben out there to fucking
yeah, we
track him
gotta-
down. We'll fucking hire a PI.
Yeah, but see, that's
Well, I've got an email somewhere to
guess that's
track
what
him
you're
down,
saying.
but then what? Now,
where it's
We're
all
not really going
we're
to
not
get the
putting-
police or the government involved. Are you kidding
now
me?
all of a sudden
Holy
we're
fuck,
fucking-
they're just shining
No,
a spotlight
you should
right
be
on
able
this
to just-
operation.
It's
Whatever.
all digital.
It
You
already
should be able to
happened.
just
No,
say,
that's
"Look,
not good
that was
karma,
a
bro."
mistake." No. You just say, "Look, that was a mistake." It should have. The transaction should have reversed immediately. There shouldn't have been anything after that. The guy would just be like, "Oh, I made a mistake," and he's like, "Okay, here you go." Honestly, here you go. That's what the computerized digital system is supposed to do: is make it to where
no.
it has to.
You
be
can't
fair.
fucking phase out douchebaggery.
That's
No,
what it's
he gave him
for.
the wrong address and he sent it in. So how you can't just reverse that transaction. It's like
That's
Send
the
it to
thing about
somebody
Bitcoin.
random?
I gave him not someone random.
the last Fiverr account that he sent Bitcoin to.
So that'd be like you're just at home. You did some work with me like a year ago. You don't know who I am. You just did a random gig. All of a sudden, you wake up one morning and there's an extra $100 of Bitcoin in your account. And then, like a couple weeks later, some dude starts emailing you asking you for that money.
Well, it's your money if you're keeping track of it.
That's
It was
right.
in your bank account. You're right. At the time, it was
But if
only
it was
$100.
if it
and
was
now it's
if it
10
was
grand.
cash, if it was
So
10 grand, maybe
I get
Buddy
it.
would
You would-
fucking say like, "Hey,
you would
okay."
notice it. I
Probably
get it.
not. Still, I mean,
I
that's
get
the
it.
thing about Bitcoin. It's like, I mean,
there's
freedom.
no-
Freedom doesn't mean protection. Freedom just means freedom.
But you
So
should
you're
have
still
been
free
able
to fucking
call-
be duped.
You should have been able to call someone or something, whatever, in Bitcoin and say, hey man, that was wrong. Can you look at that account?
No. Then you're centralized. Then you're asking for centralization. You want someone to be able to step in. You should just not do stupid things.
This is where Jeffrey's view is.
You're just doing something that you shouldn't have done. So I paid $100 for that mistake.
So you think
the
Bitcoin
best thing
is
to
not
do
centralized in any way?
Well, no, I'm saying I don't want a centralized governing body like the Royal Bank that I need to call to complain about things. That'd be like wanting to. I mean, that's the same. That's a government. Then
Seems to me it was digital. You made a mistake. It should be easily rectifiable. But you're right. It is a character story, and it's kind of fun. So
what if it's
a lot of
cash?
mileage out of it.
What if it's cash and you send your cash to the wrong person? You're not getting it back.
And if this was a social, the social monetization thing, then you would have made a bunch of extra money on
That's
what
right.
you would have made that 10 grand on all the people that are like, this is fun following this.
I don't know about 10 grand, but
$10.
$10.
I don't know, maybe.
Probably a couple subs. But no, I don't think that.
See,
I don't think there should be. I
rate
disagree that you should be able to call someone, and if you fuck it up and that person, it's on human nature now. So if that person's nice, a good person, and they want to give that back to you, then that's on them. But I don't think I need to be able to call someone to rat them out.
No,
or call someone.
Exactly. I agree with you, because he should have thought about the bigger picture and said, if we want this Bitcoin thing to work, then you have to be somewhat honest and send that shit back. Otherwise, people, that's just going to, in a philosophical, contextual way, that's going to force people away.
Who knows
from
what
the
that
system,
guy was going
right?
through, though? Maybe he needed the money more than we did.
To me, it seems like a criminal mind invented the whole thing.
Well, it's not like what Jeffrey thinks of humanity, right? That's kind of the opposite.
It's
of
hard
what
to
we
get to the
want do.
utopic. You might have it in mind, but it's going to be extremely difficult.
No one's
Or
saying
then
it.
again, maybe
no,
he
but
didn't
that's
even,
what he's
maybe he
saying.
didn't
Is
even
he's not
understand the
fucking saying
transaction.
anything about utopic.
No,
There's
Or maybe
no
he
utopia.
never got your email.
I know.
Freedom doesn't mean protection. It doesn't mean utopia. It doesn't mean anything. It just means exactly
maybe
that.
he didn't
It's
even get
freedom.
your email.
Freedom to make your own mistakes. Freedom to fall. Freedom to get back up again.
Maybe he didn't get your email. Maybe he deleted it. Maybe like it was an honest mistake.
Could have been.
But it's-
Like Bill says, he's like, you just can't think. You can't. With those currencies, and it's almost like you got to think of it like when you're a day trader or something like that. You can't dwell on that fucking bad.
it. We can fucking
can't
dwell
think on
on it
that
if we
bad
want.
trade
Are
you
you
made.
kidding
We
me?
can
This
dwell on
isn't the same fucking situation. We're gonna go after him for half the fucking profits.
All right, guys. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next weekend. If you are a lawyer dude named Ben that can help us track down this random jingle maker and sue him back to the Stone Age.
If it was a jingle maker, it could have been a $5 for something else too.
No, it's a jingle maker.
Wasn't it? You did do
other
other $5s. You did art or something.
I did
No,
art the one
did you do
time, but
art?
that was it. I actually found this other weird section of Fiverr where people are like, eat paint, things like that for money.
That's
Wouldn't it be funny if
that's
this
what
guy
the fucking
invested it?
blockchain is fucking devolved to.
I'll eat paint for $5.
Go to the dark web where you watch somebody eat paint for $5.
You can fuck that. If you're going to watch someone eat paint, watch Graham eat paint. Grimerica.ca/support. All right, guys. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week.
Five pink flamingos and a few flamenco dancers. They're in the kitchen and they're baking Day of the Dead cookies. And I step into the kitchen and I'm like, let me have a lookie, see what kind of cookie you're cooking up. And they're looking up at me skeptical, and I Poindexter to my spectacles. And I'm wearing a maroon Harvard t-shirt. Yeah, I know I'm a smart cookie, but I'm no psychic. You can come and ring my bell, but where we're gonna end up in the future, I can never tell. I can never tell. Me and five of my best friends and a few of my enemies. We're at the coffee shop and we're settling our differences. Benjamin Otto pulls out a game of Chinese checkers and he orders a cappuccino. And I pick blue and he picks red and you pick yellow. And I'm wearing a tie-dye peace sign t-shirt. Yeah, I know I'm a peacenik, but I ain't no hypocrite. You can come and ring my bell, but where we're gonna end up in the future, I can never tell. I can never tell. One bell, one man, and with my sense of smell, I can smell the salt in your tears, and I can sense your fears. You're hoping for a bit of divinity in this worldly vicinity, and you understand the fragility of the human vessel. And you sit Indian style like a pretzel, and you levitate to a transcendental state when you meditate. And you levitate to a transcendental state when you meditate. And you levitate to a transcendental state when you meditate. And you levitate to a transcendental state when you meditate. Say they like coast to coast, but on demand, raw and uncut interviews, and all without no ads. One says false and one says true, and the rate you sing grows too. Grimerica is here for you. Stories from the listeners, they sent to Graham. He'll read them and be amazed, but Darren may say no. One says red and one says blue, but if it's balls it just won't do. Grimerica